Nightmare on Bourbon Street by Anne1162. I've been debating whether or not to share this story, but I found that sharing my experience is extremely cathartic, so here goes. In the summer of 2009, my mom and I went on vacation to New Orleans, Louisiana. This was our third trip there because I was, and still am, completely in love with the city. I'm not much of a drinker, so I avoid Bourbon Street as much as I can. Even during the day, it's not the best place to visit. I love everything else about the city. The food, the architecture, the history, and all the people all hold a special place in my heart. About 3 days into our week, my mom and I decide to have dinner in the French Quarter and walk back to our hotel. The quickest route is to walk a few blocks down Bourbon Street, so we do just that. We both had a couple of beers at dinner, but it didn't really matter to us because we walked everywhere anyways. My mom has the bladder of a chihuahua, so she naturally had to stop at one of the bars to use the bathroom. I decided to hang out by the door and was almost immediately approached by a handsome stranger. He started talking to me, and I immediately charmed by his accent. He was German and spoke English very well. I made small talk with him for a little while, and my mom ended up waiting outside for a few minutes while we talked. After walking outside, I made a really bad decision and asked my mom if I could hang out with my new friend for an hour or so and have another beer in the corner. She was hesitant, but agreed after I promised to stay in public places and be back at the hotel in an hour. At this point, my memory becomes fuzzy, so I apologize if it is difficult to follow. He and I went into a bar that was known for having beer from all over the world. I tried a German lager and really liked it. I excused myself to go to the bathroom, and when I came back, I saw him leaning over the bar to whisper something to the male bartender. Then I was given another beer. At this point, I was only slightly buzzed. I'm a slender girl, and my metabolism is pretty fast. Everything after that comes in flashes. I vaguely remember being in the cab, and then I am in a strange room with him, telling me that he needs to take my driver's license to the front desk for them to hold it in case I steal something from him. At the time, that made perfect sense. Then I blink and I'm alone in the hotel room. I have no idea where the hotel is or what hotel I'm in. All I know is that it is not the room I shared with my mom, and at least 3 hours have passed since I last saw her. I dial her number on my phone and walk over to the dry cleaning bags to find the name of the hotel. She is freaking out, but I'm still too out of it to think of running out the door. I must have blacked out again, because the next thing I know, I'm lying in the hotel bed with him next to me, sleeping. I quickly get dressed, and as I'm doing so, he wakes up and asks me what I'm doing. I tell him I'm leaving, and suddenly remember that he has my license. I asked him for it, and he says that he left it at the desk. I'm at the verge of tears now, and just starting to feel the pain of what happened to me. As I'm leaving the room, I have a moment of clarity and use my phone to take a picture of the number on the door. Then I go to the front desk, look very messed up, and with a barely controlled lump in my throat, I asked the receptionist if I can have my license, and she said she didn't have it. She told that my friend just made a photocopy of it and then took my license and copy back to his room. That's when I started crying and asked her to call me a cab. I made it back to my hotel room, my mother hugs me, and we both start crying. She tells me that 2 hours passed since my phone call, and she had been trying to find the hotel I was in ever since. The hotel he brought me to was actually a half-hour drive away from the city, so none of the local maps mentioned it. When I woke up the next day, I went into the bathroom to take a shower. There were bruises all over my body, and several slightly bloody marks on my neck and shoulders. But here's the worst part. When I use the toilet, I realize that I'm peeing blood, so my mom immediately takes me to the urgent care. Turns out I had a particularly brutal UTI. I was so grateful when my test came back negative for STD. I told my mom that he still had my license, so she called his hotel and asked to speak to the security there. The security guard she spoke to was an ex-cop and had daughters of his own, so he was immediately willing to help. He banged on the creep's door for a solid 20 minutes, demanded to be given my license, and he got it. We went to the New Orleans Police Department and waited in the lobby for over 3 hours before anyone agreed to talk to me. So I repeated my story to at least 4 different police officers before they told me that it wasn't their problem. I'm sure they phrased it differently, but that's what they meant. Because the hotel was located outside of the city, it wasn't their problem. Even though I was most likely drugged by the bartender in the French Quarter, they didn't think it fell under their jurisdiction. At this point, I said screw it. I didn't know his full name, and a phone call revealed that he just left the hotel, just after the security guard confronted him. There was no way to find him, and I knew the cops didn't care anyways. People are raped all the time, and they didn't even really try to help me. This is going to sound ridiculous, but I decided to try to enjoy the rest of my vacation, and I did. My mom still hasn't forgiven herself for letting me stay with him, but it was my choice. The part that terrifies me the most is the fact that he made a copy of my license. I wonder if he planned to keep me, sell me, or follow me home. That man probably still has that photocopy. Who knows? Maybe he kept pictures of all of his victims. I doubt I was the only one he did that to. While on vacation, all these bad things happened. I'm 90% sure that the bartender was the one who drugged my drink, and he was probably paid by the attacker to do so. That's it. Thank you guys. Please subscribe if you enjoyed, and as always, be careful.